This is IBM Museum. One of the promises I made to myself was when I was working with this Model 50 system, and I kept getting the instances where I couldn't get a hard drive and controller to go through and work for me. Even plugging in a good, known good disk and controller, I went round and round, and I even had to leave the battery on the system out overnight just to get it to go through and clear the CMOS contents. And I might come up with a routine just to show a little bit better way to go through and clear those CMOS ROM contents through ROM Basic, actually, because that's what it put me into. It would go through, if I wouldn't have a bootable diskette in the drive, it would go through and it wouldn't boot from the hard drive. It'd prompt me with the diskette image on the screen, and I'd go through and I'd run the reference diskette. I had even footage that I recorded, and it would go through and tell me that the hard disk was not found. I just went round and round. So I made the promise to myself almost that if I got a working configuration, I'd go through and quit. I'd leave it. I'd maybe take apart the system for cleaning, because I do have, and I've swapped out some of the parts like the diskette drive and things like that. I didn't even test the other one that was on the other Model 50 system, and it's a little bit dirtier. I blew it out, but there's some gunk on the planer that it's gonna take a little bit deeper cleaning. I was worried about starting it up in its original condition because it was that dusty on top of the planer. But I went through, once I blew it out and got most of the residue out of there, I went through and I was fine with that. But I did get it to boot with the single known good hard drive that I have. And I'm fairly certain that I can go through and I can reproduce that working structure again on the Model 50 that I'm going to have a stock. And that's probably going to actually be that original Model 50 that I've got off to the side here, kind of off behind me. And that's a good clean planer on it and everything else. But I'll go through and, since I have the math coprocessor and everything else on that, otherwise, and I think it's even the fourth revision of the BIOS or something like that. I have to look a little, or maybe the second. I know that this one has the first revision of the BIOS, but I went through and I broke that promise a little bit, where I did go through with the known, I have, evidently it looks like I have two working controllers that plug into that slot 4, the MFM controllers, and one that I was getting the 1790 errors from that I've gone through and I've marked bad, put it on the bottom and everything else. That'll be my visual demonstration of the controller board. But I've gone through, on the other footage, I tried to go through and fire this disk up, and this doesn't boot. This goes through. It had files. It has the Xtree files. It had the WordStar files. And I was able to grab most of the WordStar files. The Xtree files were, I got quite a few of them, but I actually ran out of disk space. And it was 2 diskettes worth of files on the system anyway. And I mean, if I had further working arrangement, or I wasn't worried about those things, or I wanted to archive them more, I'd gone through and load the PKZip program or something else, zipped them up, extract them off the drive. I'm just fairly confident. I want to move forward with this demonstration of of going through and trying the Control-A process. I don't have the machine fired up. We're going to fire it up for the first time since I powered down from a known good boot with that working drive. And it's a little bit cluttered on my bench a little bit there too, for just going through and swapping stuff around. So let's go through. I'll get it powered up, and we'll know very quickly on whether we have a video or not here. And let me see. We can go through. Okay, and what I didn't mention is I have the reference disk in there, of course, loaded, and I probably need to grab that keyboard just to, and I'll wheel around. I'll not show my back, because I want to go through, and as I say, when I was trying to run the Control-A before, it was telling me that, hey, the hard drive's not found, or give me a hard drive error. So once I immediately boot the reference diskette, I want to try that Control-A sequence. Okay. And let's go immediately to the format fixed disk. Fingers crossed. Okay, I think we got to this point before. And you remember, it's yes, no, yes is unreadable. The configuration area on the fixed disk is unreadable. Please select Change Configuration from the Set Configuration menu to ensure that the fixed disk types are correct. Then rerun the format fixed disk program. And so let's go through and know and find out. In fact, let's go through the system checkout and see if it gives us the same error. And I may just have one bootable hard drive with them all 50 MFM hard drive, and that type 30 drive type of 20 megabytes. And so at least it shows the fixed disk here, which I'm going to go through and select. Okay. I didn't get this far before. So that and we see the usefulness of the other side of the Control-A in this process. So it's a learning experience for us both. I don't think I've ran this procedure before, to go to the level of, I didn't have the drives marked, for one, to that I knew anything was bad or anything like that. I don't think I went through the testing and tried the Control-A sequence on any of these drives before. And as I said, it's been a very, very long time that I've run through the Control-A procedure anyway. And, just keep in mind, these are proprietary drives to the MUL 50. If they don't work on the MUL 50, I have no way of any other system of going through and plugging those in to make them work, to recover them, and they're 20 megabyte drives. And that's why I say, and I was worried for a long time that that bootable drive, that single bootable drive that I had, I was worried about that that I had ruined it. I'd gone through some process of pairing it, and I think this is the error that we received before or similar to it. Well, I guess it was a controller error that I'd gotten through on prior footage. And I got that right away when I'd go through there and test it. It didn't go through any of these read test or seek test or anything else. And, I mean, the reality is, too, if you have a system, a drive and control that works, don't go through and push trying to stress it or to test it or just, live and let be. If you have a drive that maybe, in this instance, it looks like I'm going to have a drive that I don't have to worry about the contents. I can't boot from the drive, but I can go through and I can boot from diskette and I can see the files. I can go through a more elaborate process to see what I can recover off that drive. But for the fact of going through and it being a working bootable drive, no, that's not going to happen. Yeah, and this immediately configuration error. And they a lot of time those drives, they had, in particular, a little bit of the later series, DBA, ESDI, and stuff like that. They had that error that, I mean, the area of the disk that they use to save all that mapping of what the drive can be and all that, and errors that are found on the drive. So it just looks like we're not going to get any further with this. Now, as kind of the last step, I'll go through. Okay, and I'm gonna plug in that boot sit diskette with the boot files on it, because I want to go through and I just want to be assured that I can boot from the diskette to see the drive contents, and then I go back from here to like say that's going to be my stock machine is going to have my one working drive. I'm going to have one of the two controller boards that work for it, and that's what I'm going to have. And then for the other system, which is likely the system behind me that I'm going through, I'll clean it, and I'll go through, and I'm going to go through and cover the installation process, because a good part of that installation process is going to be putting that Renaissance, that extend Renaissance adapter, the CPU upgrade in place, plus that CMS or ARCO, IDE board and IDE drive that I showed before, of plugging it in. And that, it might be interesting because that came off of Model 50 as well, or 50 or 50Z. And so that may even take a look at what what that drive contents might be of that IDE drive as well. So, and see, I can boot from diskette. I can see files there and everything else. I'll have a little bit more if I want to go through. I did recover the mouse driver. I mean, it was reporting like version 8, but it wasn't branding, but it did have a nice little README. I was going to look at that at some point. I was going to go through and I recovered the program, the tiny little 10-byte program that parks the heads, and that sort of thing. But I think I was just in backing up some of the other files. I was just going through where the file was unreadable. I don't know if the ability for me to put anything on this system to load additional files, the files that are undamaged that I'm able to copy off the disk, and even those programs, the X3 program, the WordStar program, those files might be in a corrupted area of the drive. That proverbial rust as it is, could have gone further with these drives. So I guess I've got one hard drive that I can boot from on a MUL 50-021, and a later time, we'll go to the 50Z model as well, and just what the improvements were on it over the space model of the MUL 50. And there was an industrial system that used that MUL 50Z planar in it, and that I will cover at that time. I'm not going to cover it necessarily in this aspect because that's that 50Z planar that's in there. And just was in a case, I was trying to think, 7546, 41, 40, 70. The 7500 series is IBM's industrial level, and I have a lot of other industrial systems and everything else. I was just trying to place how they numbered that model number. But, in a rack mount case and everything else, a little bit different power supply, more like the MUL 70 with the integrated fan and things like that. But built on the Model 50Z. And I think they had a MUL 70 planar that could go in, that same case for whatever higher level of industrial system as well. So we did a lot of this looping around, all these Control-A videos. In the end, it was a failed process. We didn't gain grounds to make any of those drives work again by going through a low-level format. And sometimes with this old stuff, you lose some. I'm even surprised in some form that I can boot from diskette and even see the drive contents and things like that, and see where the system doesn't necessarily complain about the hard drive being bad. And just more importantly, for me to go through and label what works, what doesn't work. I'm going to do good this time, from the failure, in the sense of not being able to go further necessarily. I'm going to this will wrap up in less than, with a 20-minute video. So that's a little bit more digestible chunk. But even in failure, you learn things as well. And we learned a little bit about that testing process. If there's comments to go through, and with the Control-A of going through and testing more of the system, other aspects there, certainly that can be done. I'm going to go through, and with the systems, I'll check what BIOS level and things like that, and get that stored away. I don't know if those have been dumped yet or anything like that, but I don't know where at the end of this series that I am emotionally now. And there's some things, I'm coming up, I'm having to reorganize a little bit at this end, and maybe that's worth going over, we're just right below 20 minutes here. I've been doing the daily video for a time, and I even did the double videos the other day, and some of the quality of that content, I was mixed. Should I put this up? Because there was just parts, and I hemmed and hawed on, you can see me pause on the video because but I did those 2 videos because I knew this what I was attempting for that third video of this step was giving me a little bit of issue. And I've come to a point here where I've got to do a little bit of organizing locally, and that's mainly just storage and moving things around. Getting this area, as you've seen, this is a very cluttered area behind me. I've got a lot going on. I need to get more organized. And so I'm saying the daily video, I'm going to try and keep up that schedule. I'm going to try and keep up the quality of that content. I'm going to try and bring in other stuff to improve that content, including the sky cams being higher resolution and able to appropriately capture what I have. I'll try and make sure that I have my sound dialed in as well as I can. And if it requires me moving to a higher quality device for doing the recordings, then I'll do that as well, just to kind of keep that up. But if you don't see the daily video from me, just that notice that it's because I'm going through and trying to get organized and provide enough through that organization, provide enough content for videos as well. And there's no lack for content at all. And really, to this point, is there's so much of an excess of content that I can, so many areas of demanding that I could spend absolute days of video on. So, but that's a little bit of a channel update, as it were. I've heard other channels providing updates recently as well that I welcome. I mean, it sounds like some other channels are really planning some very good content as well. But if you like this content, if what we've gone through, you think you're getting a learning experience from it as well, of me covering it, and if you don't, leave comments. If you want to correct me, you want to do, I welcome comments of any level to go through and talk about this. But I'm gonna react appropriately to those comments of what people think, and try and just to respond with, if any videos are requested as well. The one comment I haven't heard so far is the colloquialism of, I put a lot of in there. I know I have a lot of ums and everything, but I'm working on it too. So if you like this video, please click on that like button. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Invite your friends to subscribe as well. And that's just all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.